time, the world was dark and cold. And then Puzzle Bobble came out! Yippee! Then there was a spin-off. Puzzle Bobble, also known as Bust a Move outside of Japan. And whether you know it or not, you've played this game because it's the original bubble shooter. Shoot bubbles and make pairs of 3 or more before the board touches the bottom of the screen. Single player gives you puzzles to clear, while multiplayer has you trying to prevent the board from touching the bottom as the enemy player sends bubbles at you by making matches. If you haven't played it before, go get some friends and play it on Fightcade, because it's one of those games that you can play for hours on end until it hurts, but you never get bored. Taito doesn't have any official multiplayer Puzzle Bobble on PC, which sucks because it would be a day 1 purchase, but oh well. Then the second game came out and gave the versus mode a loose story with these funny cutscenes that you could play on single player. And aw yeah, this is that good. Whoa, wait a minute. No! Then the third one came. But nobody cares about this one because it sucks! Nah, I'm just kidding. Look at Bub's sprite. He's so silly. But really, the game's a bit more forgettable than the others. It doesn't have a terrifying US cover to talk about, and the game itself is a huge reference to a bunch of random Taito stuff that nobody knows about, so Although the final boss is hilarious, so I'd still recommend checking it out. But finally, we get to the fourth game. This was the first one to give you a wide array of truly original characters to choose from. Now you can play as Bub still, because let's be real, Bub and Bob are the cutest characters in video game history, and it's not even close. The only character that can match them in both like cuteness and popularity would maybe be like Kirby or something, but he's just a circle. Boo! Meanwhile, Bub and Bob are out here, tubby miniature dragons with a giant singular buck tooth in the center of their face. The ultimate in goober technology. It makes it kind of hard to want to play as baby in a suit or random old guy. Well, all jokes aside, I mean, this alien dude's pretty cool. There's a big robot. But then, you see him. Bro. Is that evil Bub? Dang! He looked good! This is Develon. Despite the similar design, he isn't a bubble dragon, but rather a bat incarnate. What this gives him is the same baseline appeal as Bub and Bob, but with the additional aura of his unmatched power. In a series where the main characters use bubbles to attack, seeing Develon shoot laser beams from his hands and explode in blue flame upon victory is almost comical in a way. Like, he's just so evil! But not evil like Dreg, where it's like, ugh. It's evil like, yeah. Look at his smug face when you choose him on the character select. It's like he knows that he's the best character. But then once you're in danger, he totally loses his cool and starts tweaking before dramatically passing out. It's this cartoon edge that makes him likable. Like, even if he is evil, you get this vibe that's all he's ever known. Dreg, on the other hand, could be using his magical potion powers to cure cancer, and he knows it, but just won't do it because he's a disgusting, foul creature. I mean, Develon's home planet is Diablo, which looks like this, so no wonder he's the way he is. I mean, it actually doesn't look like that bad of a place. Like, at least they have water, but you get what I mean. We can essentially confirm the sympathetic aspect of his character by checking the manual for the home version and, ignoring the part where they call Bob Bubble Loon and the whole alter ego of Bat thing, we can see that his mischievous nature comes from him being nothing more than a lonely coward. Later games and even the Bub's broadcast YouTube channel explore this in more detail, but even just sticking to Bust a Move 4, it gives his dramatic freakouts a little more context. Like, at his core, he's really just a little boy who likes playing pranks, he doesn't know any better. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still evil, and that's a big fun part of his character that I don't want to ignore, but I'm just saying, the dude has depth to go along with his cartoonishness and lovable character design. I mean, just look at him. Come on. This game has a challenge mode where you play a bunch of levels and get ranked on your performance, and once you beat it, this is the trophy you get for Develon. Come on, bro. This character is fucking peak. I want this trophy in real life. They really knew what they were doing making this character. I mean, his catchphrases of Bayonga and Binuru are both evil versions of Bub's Payompa and Pinpuru. And Develon's voice actor is also the same one who does Frieza in Dragon Ball, at least in the home version. And it does so well to communicate the kind of character he is. The arcade version, on the other hand, is interesting. But Develon's Develon, bro. And I love him. Also, I almost forgot to say that the Japanese version of the game has full voice acting on the cutscenes that's completely absent in the international version. Damn.
俺が最強だ。
Anyways, end this segment with a serenade, my glorious king. So now that you know what character to pick, how about the actual gameplay? Well, wouldn't you like to know? Anyways, the music in this game is weird. The games up to this point have been all about cutesy, high-energy bangers. But then this one comes along with this, like, dark fantasy aesthetic. Lots of foreboding bells and clocks. It makes sense story-wise because the game's about morning never arriving and having to collect the rainbow bubbles to stop Madame Luna or whatever. But it's very jarring. Like, a cutscene starts with these cutesy characters, and it's playing this super depressing music. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's definitely unique. The main round theme makes me feel every emotion all at once. The first time I heard it, I didn't really like it. I thought it sounded kind of lethargic and sick by comparison. But eventually it's grown on me along with the rest of the soundtrack, and I can appreciate its more whimsical undertones. It definitely takes some getting used to though. Cue the spooky ghost music for the credits, with the game then fading out to bells and an ominous ticking. Very weird, but very cool. I like the song that plays during the pulley levels. Here the bells and ticking really work to highlight the precarious vibe, and it gets faster as the level goes on. On that note, the gameplay. Puzzle mode and bust and move has you going between sets of levels and clearing them, and up until now, all the levels have been static, I think, because I haven't played the puzzle mode in the third game. Shh. There's also a large type of level that shows up usually twice per set of 5, and these ones are always the most stressful because something about the extra space makes it harder to aim. But new to this game is the aforementioned pulley system, which acts exactly how you think it might, with the weight of the bubbles lowering or raising one side over the other. The only problem is that because the game moves in steps, it's less obvious than you might think it is to figure out how the scale is going to tip. Sometimes you'll think the pulley has stopped moving, because it literally does, but then the next step has it fall below the line. Other times, the length of the rope can be unpredictable, so you'll think you're making a safe move that'll just change the balance a little bit, only to have the cluster suddenly plummet to your doom. At least there aren't any lives or anything, so you're free to play around and figure it out. And with that in mind, it's a pretty nice way to spice things up for this iteration of the formula. Speaking of spicing things up, the Versus mode introduces a new way of clearing bubbles through something called chain reactions. You see, the previous meta of kicking ass at Puzzle Bobble is to throw a bunch of bubbles onto a line of other bubbles you know you can clear, then drop those for a massive bonus. But with chain reactions, dropping bubbles now causes a cascading effect where they'll destroy other ones on the board based on some criteria that makes sense in the example they show but is weirdly incomprehensible in practice. Yeah, I don't know. Chain reactions aren't my favorite thing, and it makes sense why they didn't become a series staple. It's not that they aren't fun to pull off. In fact, pulling off a huge chain is extremely satisfying and flashy, and it tends to completely nuke your opponent, but that's the problem. Not that regular bust move is super tactical or anything, but chain reactions more than ever feel like they're based on you getting lucky with the bubbles you're given. It's not like you can really set anything up, because if you slow down, then somebody just focusing on bursting bubbles will inevitably send some your way and ruin whatever you're setting up. Or even if you do manage to throw something their way, there's a chance the game will give them something useful and they can just get their own massive chain combo in response without even having to think about it. Maybe I'm just stubborn, and in the obscure Puzzle Bobble competitive scene, this game is heralded for its extraordinary planning required to get good. But to me, it feels like 1 second I could be absolutely kicking ass, taking my opponent out in 1 second, or in the next, I'm getting utterly clapped despite multiple board clears. Like this old dude G just refused to die in my playthrough. I was shredding through everyone else, but then I end up fighting him for 20 minutes straight, and when I finally won, I didn't even know how. I guess you could say it was exciting, but the whole time I'm like, Generously, they allow you to turn off chain reactions in the options, and while it makes for a much more relaxed experience, at the same time you kind of feel bad for doing it because getting those dazzling chain reactions is part of what makes this game special. Not to mention without them, certain characters become much more difficult to fight. Each character has their own type of attack, which determines what bubbles they send to their opponent and from what direction. While many characters just send regular bubbles, some characters send rainbow bubbles and inert blocks at varying frequency. They usually aren't a huge problem with chain reactions because most of the time you can set up a chain to help drop them easier. So the real threats come from characters like G and, funnily enough, Develon, who don't send these special bubbles but instead just have super aggressive AI that likes to put the chains together and immediately kick your ass out. For them, it's mainly just endurance to hope that you can get lucky and outpace them, or have their AI make some sort of mistake. But without chain reactions, suddenly the threat becomes sweet, unassuming Gurul, who likes to send in rainbow bubbles that block off the board while shaking her annoying rattle and throwing distracting music notes across the screen. No shortcuts here. You have to deal with these bubbles as they come in, and it takes a lot more skill than it does with chain reactions. So paradoxically, the game becomes both easier and more difficult. So I don't know. It mainly just depends on what mood I'm in. Also, Tamtam has his own theme song. It plays over the level theme. There's literally no reason why. Anyways, here I was thinking I might go over Develon's story playthrough, but I'm gonna cut it and instead show you a few highlights, because I don't want to spoil the silly dialogue for you, and definitely not because I'm rushing this video out to meet a certain deadline I'll mention in a second after procrastinating for 2 months straight. Oh my god, is that 2 Develons? What am I, in heaven? What am I, in heaven? Okay, this might actually be hell. There you are, Dreg. Of course it's you. It's always you behind these wretched deeds. Unfortunately for you, this is where your story ends. Because Develon is here, and he is going to kick your ass. Get ready. Oh, it's over.
Now I'm Emperor of the Universe!
Oh my god, is there no hope left for the wait? What is Bub doing hanging around G? Earlier in the story, it's established that G is a bad guy.
Yeah, look after your bubbles.
Oh, you're also a bad guy.
So why is Bub hanging out with him? Did he really follow Develon all the way to Madame Luna without making any sort of move to take the bubbles back? I mean, they clearly weren't traveling in a group because they pretty much kill each other to get the bubbles. And given the story's progression, Develon's ascension would happen where he collects the final bubble, that place being Madame Luna's evil stronghold. But once he descends and destroys the evil fortress, Bub and G are revealed to us, scampering away like cockroaches. Maybe Bub isn't the virtuous lad we think he is. Maybe he has a dark side, and Develon is the one who, although clearly enjoying his power, is using it to bring order to the universe. Also, today's his birthday. Did you know that? Guys. The Bub's Broadcast YouTube channel has a video about him where it's revealed his birthday is June 6th. So say happy birthday, Develon! Say it. Out loud. So yeah, that's Bust a Move 4. I'm just gonna go get some more footage for the versus mode and... What is this, story? I mean, yes, there is a story that I just went over. Maybe this is where you can watch the cutscenes or something? Wait, what is this? Oh my god, is that Develon's house? What is this? He has a framed picture of himself. What is that? Look at these dragon feet pillars. Is he royalty? Bro, who's calling his name? Yo, we got new Develon dialogue. He makes cute snort noises when he sleeps and growls upon being woken up. Bro, who is that? This was essentially my reaction to first discovering this mode while recording footage. I'd already gone through the game a few times, and not until recording did I ever discover the existence of the console exclusive story mode. It just sits there so unassuming. You would think that the arcade versus mode would be it for any story, but they actually bothered to make something new for the home port, and it's pretty cool. I actually think it nails the vibe the game was going for even better than the arcade, sending your player character to the mystical world Arcana to seal magical tarot cards to keep the balance of the universe in check. The otherworldly music makes a lot more sense here and masterfully contributes to the occult atmosphere. Unfortunately, there isn't much else in terms of dialogue with your character, but the ending is actually pretty cool and charming, so if you're checking this game out, I highly recommend beating this mode. Just make sure you turn on autosave in the game settings first. This game came out before data management was really standardized, so unfortunately you have to deal with that little weird step, but otherwise, it's a good time. At the very least, it gave us a look at Develon's house. Look at how big that bed is, bro. And those flowing curtains, birds chirping outside. Dude's living the life. Now before we go, there's actually one last thing to address, and that is the Game Boy Color version, which is actually pretty damn good. I mean, the graphics aren't bad for an 8-bit conversion. Oh my god, okay. Cyclops Develon. This is just funny. The game feels surprisingly good to play too. Something about the way the bubbles move and burst feels really smooth. The game in general just has that nostalgic Game Boy Color vibe. Just that silent character select screen with the crunch down sprites and that thick 8-bit fluttery noise when you choose a character. Music here is also a lot more classic and energetic. The main round music is remixed to be much more upbeat. And the main menu theme has this encouraging feel to it. The game has all the main modes you'd expect. There's the challenge mode, which is pretty much the same, except this time the roles are switched to where Bub is on the trophy and your character is representing. Although the classification of blank degree bust-a-mover is still kind of confusing. Like, what, second degree? Like murder? Also, for some reason, there's a bunch of locked characters that you can't play as in any of the other modes, and I have no idea how to unlock any of them. Then again, I don't know how to unlock any of the characters in the console mode either, so maybe that's a me problem. Meanwhile, the arcade mode seems to be the same. You've got pulley levels, branching paths, a limited amount of credits. Limited amount of credits? The fuck? Never mind, screw the arcade mode. The hell is that? Why would they do that only for the handheld version? Actually, on second thought, never mind, keep that shit on the handheld. At least there's still the versus mode, which I am now just realizing is marked as player versus CPU despite there not being a multiplayer mode. But I don't know, guys. Either they made the AI way too easy, or I am absolutely cracked. There is no story in this mode. All you do is just face against random opponents, but like, bro, they never stopped coming. They couldn't beat me. I was facing off against opponent after opponent, just owning all of them. It looked like it was getting close with my loathsome copy here. Nope. I got to pack A. I thought I made one too many bad shots. Nope. Robot guy? Look at this, now I've gotta lose. Nope. I'm unstoppable. I just can't lose.
Of course you can't lose. You're playing as me, Develon, Bayonga.
Man, get your fan-dubbed, mid to late 2000s YouTube game reviewer character insert gag.
Oh, hey, Kirby.
Ass off the screen! I can't see!
What do you mean you can't see? You idiot! You just lost! You're making me look bad!
Okay, I'm out. Next time is Bustin' Move Millennium and Super Puzzle Bobble, so there's still more Develon action to come, so yeah. In the time it took for me to make this video, they released a trailer for a new Puzzle Bobble game after 6 years. After 6 years, they released a new trailer for the Puzzle Bobble game while I was editing this video, bro. You can't make this up. But this is what happens when you have a job. This is what happens when you have a job.